Welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. F1 is officially in its off-season, but there's plenty of stories going on away from the track that are setting us up very nicely for the 2025 campaign. This week, we react to the reported $1 billion deal for Aston Martin to sign Max Verstappen from Red Bull Racing. Flavio Briatore has openly stated that Franco Colapinto could replace Jack Doohan mid-season at Alpine. And Sir Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari debut is all set for next week. That is according to the CEO of Ferrari himself. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. Let's dive in, guys. It's going to take some getting used to seeing Sir Lewis Hamilton in red overalls. After all, the British 7-time Formula 1 world champion has either raced for McLaren, Mercedes or Mercedes during his entire career, meaning that he's pretty much donned either white or black overalls during that time. Seeing him drive for Ferrari for the first time, it's going to take some getting used to, but I am really looking forward to it. I want to see how he does at Ferrari. I think it's a fascinating combination of having the most successful driver in the history of the sport and also the most successful team in the history of the sport as well, combining to potentially have a lot of success in the future as well. Now, Hamilton's first Ferrari test has been the subject of a lot of speculation. We've known that it was going to happen some point before the car was revealed in February, and team boss Fred Vasseur, I think he actually alluded to it being sometime in January, and now that looks to be the case, as the CEO of Ferrari has confirmed that Sir Lewis Hamilton will make his debut for Ferrari in a testing session next week, so the week commencing the 20th of January 2025. Now, normally I have an article to read from. I don't have the article, but I do have the story, so let's read from this, guys. The guy that normally does these articles is off work at the moment, but I'm here as always to go through these stories, so let's dive in. Let's have a look at these. Ferrari CEO Benedetto Vigna has confirmed that Lewis Hamilton will make his highly anticipated official debut at Maranello and Fiorano next week. Recent reports suggested that the 7-time world champion will be in the simulator at Ferrari's Italian HQ on Monday, before making his track debut at the adjacent Fiorano test track in a 2022 red single-seater in the days to follow. Lewis Hamilton will be with us next week, Vigna said, as a new sponsor deal by Italian bank UniCredit was introduced to the team. Santander, I think, have actually left the team now. I think they've gone to Williams with Carlos Sainz, so it makes sense they've got someone in to replace them. We are ready for almost everything, but not everything. We'll sort it out, he smiled. UniCredit's sponsorship replaces the deal with Spanish bank Santander. There you go, I knew it. Which has followed Carlos Sainz to Williams. It's going to be weird seeing the Ferrari without that. The red and white works so well. It's going to Santander. They're going to change to be blue and white instead. I don't know what's going to happen there. Anyway, more important things. Hamilton at Ferrari. Vigna said, "It's a partnership that we wanted to announce shortly before Hamilton's arrival, placing people at the centre of our companies and the communities that gravitate around us." As for Hamilton's Ferrari debut, there have been reports that local police are expecting a huge influx of fans into the area. Clearly there is great anticipation, said Vigna. There is a lot of excitement and a great deal of desire to get started. We are finalising the last details now. Vigna explained that he had been personally inspired by Hamilton's motivation to change Formula 1 teams. At 40 years of age, he's got back into the game and embraced a culture that was different from the Anglo-Saxon one in many ways, he said. Well, I mean, the Saxons and the Angles did come from Germany back in the day, Germany, Denmark, that sort of region. So, UK with McLaren, Germany with Mercedes, Anglo-Saxon, I guess it makes sense. But we've got some Italian influence coming in there too. Oh man, I think he's going to love it. I really hope he does well, I really, really do. And I'm not just saying that as a Brit, but I just think it's such a romantic thing for a great driver like Hamilton to do well at a great team like Ferrari. There's something very special about it. And when it doesn't work out for Ferrari for some great drivers, you could argue Fernando Alonso falls into that category. You could argue the likes of Alain Prost back in the day fall into that category too. World champions that went to Ferrari to win another championship. It didn't happen for them in the end. When that happens, it is a bit disappointing. it is a bit disappointing for sure. So I hope Hamilton doesn't fall into that as well. I hope he has a great swan song to his year. I feel his career in Formula One as a whole. You know, he's had an incredible career, the best of anybody so far. So I want to see him answer that. I don't want him to go out on Formula One on a damp squib. That'd be so disappointing. I'm sure there's some people that would like to see that, particularly some aspects of the British press over here would love to see that. They would love it. But I hope it doesn't happen. But yeah, guys, what do you think? Are you excited to see Hamilton in a Ferrari for the first time? I very much am. I think it's going to be a massive day for social media and stuff like that. They are going to be promoting the hell out of it. And all power to them. You got to do it. You got to do it. You're going to do it, of course. So yeah. So something that's been hypothesized a lot about is Sir Lewis Hamilton's relationship with the current generation of Formula One cars. Formula One cars went through a pretty big regulation change in 2022, where ground effects was reintroduced into the sport for the first time since the 1980s. Now, not only have Mercedes struggled to come on top of that, but even by the time they arguably did in 2024, Lewis Hamilton, you have to say his results were worse on the whole than George Russell. Something that if you look at the experience and the past record of these two guys, you would not expect to happen. With the greatest respect to Russell, I think he's a good driver, a bit of a questionable personality in Formula One, but I think he's a good driver for the future for sure for Mercedes. But Hamilton is a 7-time world champion, won 6 world championships in 7 years with Merc between 2014 and 2020. The guy was a winning machine, the most successful Formula One driver and team pairing in the history of the sport. But do the current cars suit him? And these current cars are continuing in 2025. So even though he's moved to Ferrari, according to Toto Wolff, he's now former team boss, his troubles could continue. Let's have a look at this article here on the F1Chronicle.com, guys. It's sure to be a fascinating one for sure. Lewis Hamilton seems to be bringing a darker shade of red to Ferrari in 2025. Despite Hamilton leaving Mercedes after more than a decade and winning no fewer than 6 of his 7 titles, boss Toto Wolff says the team intends to keep the black livery elements that were inspired by the driver in 2020. We're sticking with it. We're continuing with it. Wolff is quoted as saying by Automotor und Sport. Of course, this was also inspired by Black Lives Matter as well on top of that, and this season we had a bit of Mercedes silver in there for the silver hours. A bit of a hybrid really of that, but to be honest, I actually prefer the black look to the cars. I do think it looks better. I think with silver it looks kind of boring, to be honest, unless you're going to go McLaren back in the day and go chrome, which they're not going to do. The Mercedes silver's kind of a dull colour really when you think about it, but the black definitely sticks out more. Meanwhile, fans are convinced, based on recent social media hints, that Hamilton will this year race a darker red Ferrari compared to the one driven by his predecessor Carlos Sainz in 2024. The 40-year-old is expected to do his first session in the simulator at Maranello next week, with Italian reporters claiming, hopefully not complaining, yeah, he's only just joined, claiming that local police have been alerted to expect a massive influx of Tifosi into the area. Tifosi obviously being the fanatical support of Scuderia Ferrari. 1997 world champion Jacques Villeneuve, love Jacques, what a guy, chided Flavio Briatore, also love Flavio, 2 great guys right there, as being short-sighted by saying he wouldn't have signed Hamilton in Frederic Vasseur's place. Okay, you just have to look at the value of Ferrari at the minute they signed him. He said, yes, they are there to win, but winning helps them sell more cars and add to the value of Ferrari. That's what the business is, and signing Lewis was worth millions and millions, so it was the best move they've ever done. Ferrari has also apparently reserved its Fiorano test track for Hamilton between the 21st and 23rd of January, with the British driver expected to drive the 2022 car. Of course, by that point, the 2022 car is 3 years old, and it's also the first ground effect car Ferrari made in the modern era. So the testing will not be as good as testing the 25 car by any means, but there is a lot of parallels there to be drawn. And I imagine it'll probably have some aerodynamic devices on from New Year's, but I don't know what the rules say about that. Personally, it's a complicated web, is the Formula 1 regulations when it comes to testing these days. Just how competitive Hamilton will be alongside Charles Leclerc this year is currently the subject of intense speculation, given his struggles at Mercedes in the post-2021 ground effect era. The current generations of car don't really suit Lewis's driving style, says Mercedes boss Wolff. He brakes late and throws the car aggressively into the corner. The car and the tyres just can't handle that. Sometimes it's better with these cars to drive at 98%, he added, and that's more noticeable in qualifying than in the races. Interesting thoughts. I'm sure there'll be some people out there that are saying sour grapes there and all this and that, saying that Wolff is kind of play things up in that regard. I don't really buy that personally, you know. Even if you take the professional side of things out of it, I think Hamilton and Wolff do get on. I think they are friends. I think they probably still maybe message each other every now and again. It's a bit awkward with being in different teams now, but I don't think he'd say that maliciously, to be honest. There is some evidence for that. I mean, you look at Hamilton's performance from 2022 onwards. He's won, 2 races in 3 years, and prior to that he won at least 1 race every single season, and quite often 10 races if not more in some of his championship winning seasons. So there's definitely a theory there. I can see what he's saying. If that is the case, then unfortunately Hamilton's probably going to struggle again this year if that's the case. I don't know if I think that's the case personally. I personally think that the downturn in, and I've said this loads of times, I sound like a repeat record, so I'm sorry if you guys watch my videos quite a bit and you've heard this a million times before, but for the newer people who've not watched as many, welcome, glad to have you. But one of my theories when it comes to this is I think that since Hamilton announced that he was going to Ferrari for 25, basically at the start of 24, even before testing started, that Mercedes understandably were focusing their development on George Russell and his driving style for the car. And again, Wolff hinted it there. The driving style of Lewis is not the best for the car, but is George Russell's driving style the best for the car? Probably is. I think it probably is, because why would you, even if you are Hamilton and you are an incredible success story in Formula 1, why would Mercedes develop the car to suit him in 2024? He's leaving, and we all know that the 2024 car is going to probably be, it's going to be evolved on, it's going to be worked on to be a 25 car. It's not going to be a revolution, it's going to be an evolution, and that's going to be the case for every single team, bar maybe some of the ones that were struggling like Aston Martin. I can imagine they want to tear up the blueprints and go with something completely new. Who blames them at that point? They were terrible in the second half of the season, and most of the season in general, to be honest. Not even a single podium to the name in this season just gone, was there, for them? So yeah, there could potentially be some truth to that, but who knows? It could be a combination of the two. It could be like, I can see it where it's like he's not too down to earth with the ground effect cars, for lack of a better term. Sorry if that's a bit of a pun, kind of is when you think about it. But also on top of that as well, you got the development there, and I feel like the difference in the pace between Russell and Hamilton changed markedly through the year. And then there's the mental health side of things too, of course. Hamilton struggled for confidence, but again, having that equipment not working right for him is probably a reason for that. Hamilton for me is not, I know some people are going to be like, he's always making excuses. I'm talking about in a serious thing, not for, on the radio, not in the media, but in seriousness. I think he's not a person that makes excuses. He'll blame himself, he'll beat himself up. And that, I think, was pretty obvious, pretty evident when it came to some of his things he said over the radio, and in the media and stuff after. Think of Brazil. The man wanted to go on a holiday. If you're having a bit of a bad time, what do you want to do? You want to get out of the office. You want to go on a holiday, go on a little trip. It makes the world a difference. So I think he was being genuine when he said that. But yeah, guys, what do you think? Is Hamilton going to join Ferrari? Is it a financial move? Is it something that Jacques Villeneuve was hinting at? Is he going to struggle because it's the ground effect cars? Will he beat Charles Leclerc? Thoughts in the comments below. There was an interesting quote that came out this weekend from Sergio Perez. Of course, Perez, a veteran of Formula 1, someone who has been ousted from his 2025 Formula 1 seat with Red Bull Racing. He was meant to race this season with Red Bull, but it has not happened. He's been bought out effectively, and he's going to have a sabbatical whether he wants to or not. He's not going to be on the grid this year in Formula 1. And Perez basically said that, if he's happy in 6 months' time out of Formula 1, he will not come back into F1. But presumably, going off of that quote, if he isn't happy, if he does want to come back to Formula 1, then he will try and do so. But then the question is, where will he go? Well, there's 2 more seats in 2026 for a start for him to have a go. So I'm just going to go over all of the 11 teams and say whether he's likely to be able to race for any of them, really, because there's quite a few seats that are already taken up for 2026, but at the same time there's quite a few seats that are not. There's a good half of the grid that has not been yet determined by the teams. Basically, they don't have a full set of drivers, so I'm just going to go into these and give my thoughts on whether it is likely Perez will come back to Formula 1, and if so, which team will he do so for. So let's get the teams that have got 2 drivers signed up out of the way immediately. So Williams, McLaren, Haas, Ferrari, Audi, which is obviously going to be Sauber this year, but Audi in 2026, as well as Aston Martin, have all of their drivers signed up. Both of their seats are taken up by drivers that are currently competing in 2025 and will compete next year in 2026. So I'm going to discount all of those because I don't see Perez forcing his way into any of these seats, even if the things don't work out for, I don't know, the likes of Ollie Behrman perhaps or whatever. I don't see Perez really going to Haas to replace him. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen that Behrman is going to struggle next year this year I should say now, at all in Formula 1. We also need to discount the Racing Bulls and Red Bull, I think. I mean, Max Verstappen is signed on for 2026, but that's the only one out of those 4 seats which is determined and defined. But I don't see Perez ever going back to Red Bull, either of the Red Bull teams, the Racing Bulls nor the Red Bull Racing team. Just don't see it happening. I don't know why he'd go back. I don't know why they'd want him back. It just wouldn't make any sense in my opinion. Mercedes, they don't have either of their drivers signed up for 2026. But again, I honestly think it's likely that we're going to see George Russell stay there and probably Kimi Antonelli for another year too. Even if in a disaster situation that Kimi Antonelli does not perform in 2025, then perhaps he could be replaced by Valtteri Bottas, who is of course Mercedes' 3rd and reserve driver for this season coming up. So I don't see Perez forcing his way into Mercedes. It's just too big of a team. And believe it or not, that only leaves us really with 2 different teams, Alpine and the newly founded Cadillac. Could Perez go to Alpine? Well, I don't see it. I don't see that either. They already have Pierre Gasly signed up for 2026. The 2nd seat is yet to be confirmed. This season coming up, we've got Jack Doohan in the car. Now, I've already spoken at length in a longer video going over why Franco Colapinto signing for Alpine has already probably spelled the end for Jack Doohan's Formula 1 career, at least with Alpine in this current stint. Of course, Colapinto was the reserve driver for Williams in 2024, and he also came in as a last minute kind of promotion from the reserve seat to the F1 race seat to replace Logan Sargent. He impressed a lot of people. He impressed clearly Flavio Briatore. So I think it will be Franco Colapinto in that car in 2026 alongside Pierre Gasly. And I also think we'll probably see Colapinto in 2025, perhaps even as early as Miami. Miami is the race that a lot of people are saying is going to be the first one for Colapinto, but we'll see what happens there. So that really leaves Cadillac, and it's incredible how few options he's got. Now, speaking totally honestly, I mean, if you guys have seen my Cadillac drivers video, people who can drive for Cadillac in 2026, when they joined there, I said that Sergio Perez would definitely be within a shout of this for a number of reasons. There's the commercial aspect to it. There's the fact that Perez is a very experienced driver. He's a very experienced driver in midfield teams, very successful driver in midfield teams, and Cadillac will want to be a midfield team when they come into Formula 1. They don't want to make up the numbers, of course, but, you know, going in and being a midfield team would be very impressive for a debut season. So I feel like Perez is a very good option for that. I also think that Valtteri Bottas would be a good option for that seat too, for the more experienced driver. And Mario Andretti, of course, the 1978 Formula 1 world champion and a executive advisor, I think his position is, some senior management position in the organisation, obviously. He's basically said, look, we want an experienced guy in Formula 1, and we also want a guy who is fresh-faced, coming from IndyCar, and someone like, I don't know, maybe an Alex Palou, somebody like a Colton Herta. Alex Palou's been a bit ambitious, actually. I don't really see that one, but, or maybe a Pato O'Ward, someone like that. So they're going to have a guy from IndyCar and they're going to have a guy from Formula 1. And for that Formula 1 seat, I think really the 2 standout candidates would be Valtteri Bottas and also Sergio Perez as well. So I think that Cadillac is a likely option, but like I said in the intro, it's if he wants it. Like he says, if in 6 months' time he's happy at home, doesn't want to go back to F1, if he feels like he's doing better, he won't come back, and that seat will probably go to Valtteri Bottas as a result, who could get it anyway, of course, but we'll have to see, guys. But what do you think? Do you think that Sergio Perez will be back in Formula 1 in 2026? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. So earlier this month, we brought you the confirmation that Franco Colapinto has joined Alpine Formula 1 team for the 2025 season. He's joined as the team's test and reserve driver, pretty much de facto their third driver if anything happens to Pierre Gasly or Jack Doohan during this campaign. However, there are some caveats to that. Now, obviously, Colapinto has been released from his Williams contract, and a lot of money was in that deal. The rumor is that it was around 20 million US dollars. Now, whether that is Alpine paying that or Franco Colapinto's sponsors, because we did do a video last week going over this deal and what it meant and everything, and I said that it was Alpine that was ponying up this money, but apparently it might have actually been the sponsors of Franco Colapinto over in Argentina. But either way, regardless of who's paying it, there's a lot of money involved in this deal, and if it is the sponsors, they're going to want to see their man in a Formula 1 race seat as soon as possible. They've invested a lot of money in him, so they want to see that return for investment. If it's Alpine that have paid that much money, they're not going to pay that much money without actually wanting to utilize him as a racing driver. Now, the problem in a sense is that obviously Jack Doohan is the second driver for Alpine in 2025. Now, that contract, that deal was already agreed apparently before Flavio Briatore, who's one of the senior directors over Alpine, and I guess Renault actually by default as well. He's pretty much running the team at this point, I imagine, from a high position. And that deal was signed with Doohan before Briatore came in. And apparently Briatore is not too keen on Jack Doohan, and he's not mincing his words really when it comes to this. Now, normally I'd read an article on the F1Chronicle.com and just go over the story and everything like that, but unfortunately the person who does do these articles is off work at the moment. I do have the story, but I can't show you on the website because there's no article for it currently. So I'm just going to read this and get into what has been said here, because Briatore is not hiding at all that it is at least a minimum of possibility that Colapinto could replace Jack Doohan partway through the 2025 season. And honestly, I've said it before, I would really be shocked if Doohan makes it past about a quarter of the season in that seat. But let's have a look at this, guys. So, the pressure is mounting on Jack Doohan as Alpine snaps up rising Argentine talent Franco Colapinto. The team's powerful and famous executive director, Flavio Briatore, reached a deal with Williams boss James Vowles to secure Colapinto on a multi-year contract. In 2025, at least at first, he will be the reserve driver, but rumours of more are already in the full swing. We believe this agreement with Alpine represents Franco's best chance of securing a race seat in 2025 or 2026, James Vowles admitted in a statement. And I don't disagree with that because, you know, Williams have both Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, I believe, contracted for 2026 season in addition to this season in 25 as well. So it's not a surprise really that that would be the case. German news agency DPA believes that the Australian rookie Doohan's race seat in this year is only guaranteed for the initial 6th Grand Prix of 2025. And I also heard a rumor apparently as well that the Miami Grand Prix has basically said, "Welcome Franco, we really want to see you," which again kind of leads into the fact that, well, he's probably going to be in the Alpine seat by then. "We will start the year with Pierre Gasly and Jack. I can guarantee you that," Briatore told Le Parisien newspaper. "Then we will see during the season." He's not really hiding it at all, is he? When asked if he is certain Doohan will still be in the car at the end of the season, the 74-year-old Italian admitted, "The only thing that is certain is death." Hopefully not to Doohan. That sounds a bit threatening, to be honest, but okay. "I have to put the team in a position to achieve results," Briatore added. "The drivers are responsible for finishing work of around 1,000 people behind them. They all work for just 2 people. If a driver doesn't deliver results, doesn't progress, he will be replaced. You can't be emotional in Formula 1. He has said that as well. There's no place for emotion in Formula 1 as well. And yeah, I mean, it very much does seem as though Doohan's going to be gone after 6 races, because the problem is for Doohan is that even if, and I speak from experience here because, you know, I was around in Formula 1. I was watching Formula 1 when Briatore was, you know, active back in the day, you know, before he left after 2009. I mean, left, he was forced out, but that's Spygate. It's not Spygate. Crashgate is another story for another day. Spygate's another controversy around that time too. But yeah, I mean, I'll be shocked if Doohan sees out the season. I'll be shocked if Doohan sees out even a quarter of the season. You know, that contract that he has is, if that's true about the 6 races, I think that's just going to give him the perfect opportunity, because they won't have to pay him off. He can just go back to being the reserve driver. After that contract expires, in theory, he's not even part of Renault, depending on whether it goes into a rolling deal or whatever. We don't know the specifics of it, obviously, but, you know, the race is only guaranteed for those 6 races. And even then, they could bring him in early if they wanted to. They just have to pay him off. And it would not be to the tune of $20 million. It would be a lot less than that, you would imagine. So, yeah, I am very worried for Doohan. I think he's a good driver. Whether he's on the level of Colapinto or not, I don't know. I'd be surprised if he is, to be honest. But we've only got one race to judge him off, and that was a one-off race in Abu Dhabi, and he basically did nothing really in that race, which wasn't great for his reputation, I don't think. But then again, it's like, well, you parachuted in at the absolute last moment there. So I like Colapinto. I want to see him back in Formula 1, but this very much has the taste of something bitter in my mouth, I'll be honest with you. I don't like it in this sense. And the thing is as well, right? I mean, I don't expect this to happen, but what if, right? Imagine if Jack Doohan gets into that car at the start of the season and he outperforms Pierre Gasly. That is not good. That is what would happen at that point? Does he still get rid of Jack Doohan? Maybe he would. I mean, I'm trying to think now, but I'm sure, was it 2004 with Renault? And we had Fernando Alonso, and we had, I want to say, Jarno Trulli. And Trulli, up to the point where he was replaced by Giancarlo Fisichella, I think it was. I think Trulli was actually, points-wise, on a par with Alonso. Alonso being a lot younger, obviously, and, you know, really getting into the swing of things at that point. But Briatore has absolutely no qualms, no reservations about binning somebody off, even when they're performing pretty good. Even if you're being pessimistic and say pretty good. So I don't see that being a problem for him. I think that decision's already been made, and Doohan will be in this car for the first quarter of the season, and then he'll be out. And it sucks, but it does mean we get Colapinto back, which I like. But, man, I don't know. I don't think Colapinto would have wanted it to be like this, but, you know, I don't want to say he's a beggar, because he's not. He's a great driver, and he was always going to make his way back into Formula 1 at some point, but beggars can't be choosers. You've got to take your opportunities when it's there, so I don't blame Colapinto at all. He's doing the right thing for his career. He's got his backers behind him, and I wish him all the best for that, and I wish Doohan all the best as well, because I hope this is not the end of his Formula 1 career after those 6 races. I hope he gets another chance at another team, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. You know, because it's hard in Formula 1. Once you're out, it's very hard to get back in. It's hard to get in the first place, but then it's even harder to get back in the second time. Ask the likes of Mick Schumacher, who's been trying to get back into Formula 1 for ages. It's not easy. It's really tough. But guys, what do you think? Do you think that the fate of Doohan is sealed after those first 6 races? Is he going to leave that race seat and be replaced by Franco Colapinto? Let us know in the comments below. Formula 1 is one of the richest sports in the world, and is without a doubt the richest motorsport in the world. And some of the money that goes around when it comes to the deals to host Grand Prix, when it comes to tie drivers down to long-term deals, are eye-watering. Some of the numbers that are being thrown around when it comes to Sir Lewis Hamilton's deal at Ferrari are absolutely incredible. And Alpine reportedly paid around $20 million just to get Franco Colapinto, who at the time of recording is effectively their test and reserve driver. That will not last too long. I imagine he will be a proper race seat driver very soon for Alpine. But there's a rumour going around at the moment about Max Verstappen and Aston Martin. Now, there have been links between these two for quite some time now. Obviously, Lawrence Stroll is someone who has pumped a lot of money into that team. They've got brand new facilities at Silverstone. Some people saying the most state-of-the-art facilities on the whole of the Formula 1 grid, that puts the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes to shame. Now, when it comes to the drivers as well, Lawrence Stroll is someone who does not go cheap in terms of the person that partners his son Lance Stroll. The lead driver for Aston Martin so far has always been a multiple world champion, Sebastian Vettel before. We've got Fernando Alonso now, and there's a lot of rumours going around that Max Verstappen could be the future of that as well. As amazing as Alonso is, he is contracted currently with Aston Martin until the end of the 2026 season, which by that time he'll be, what, 45 years of age, and I don't doubt that he's going to be good enough to still race in Formula 1, but if the chance to get Max Verstappen comes up for Stroll Sr., will he turn him down? I don't think so. And apparently, Aston Martin, they have denied now publicly that they are going to try and sign Verstappen for $1 billion. Now that is a lot of smackaroonies. That is a lot of money. We talk about some big figures here on the F1Chronicle.com, but $1 billion, now that's a whole nother level. But let's have a look at this, guys. I've got a full article here. It's not on the F1Chronicle.com itself. Unfortunately, my good man Jared is off work at the moment, so he's unable to get these articles onto the website. But I do have the story in front of me, so just bear with me as I read from this for you. Aston Martin has denied wild reports that owner Lawrence Stroll is prepared to spend an eye-watering $1 billion to woo Max Verstappen to the team. A source told Britain's Daily Mail that team managing director Jefferson Slack has been going around saying Max will be joining Aston Martin. A deal would reunite the quadruple world champion Verstappen with Adrian Newey, who is starting work at the team in March. Over the winter, Aston Martin replaced team boss Mike Crack with renowned former Mercedes engineer Andy Cowell. Crack has remained at the team in a different role. He'll be, chief of trackside operations, the CTO, I think his position is. So he's not out of the team, but he is now no longer the team principal of Aston Martin. When asked about the Verstappen to Aston Martin rumours, a team spokesman categorically denies the report. Verstappen's management also acknowledged the reports but offered no comment. Despite Stroll's huge investments in the Silverstone-based team, Aston Martin struggled to develop its 2024 car within the season. We certainly won the World Championship for the most updates, Cowell said, but they did not produce improvements in lap times. 27-year-old Verstappen's future beyond 2025 is unclear, but he seems excited by Red Bull signing up iconic German football manager Jurgen Klopp to head the brand's soccer programs, aka football to the rest of us. I think the two of them have a lot to say to each other and a lot of questions to ask each other, Red Bull's F1 advisor Dr. Helmut Marko told Sport 1. What they have both certainly got in common is that neither of them lets themselves be manipulated and is known and popular for clear and direct words. We are now trying to organise the meeting as soon as possible, he added. Jurgen Klopp has spoken publicly as well about how he wants to meet Max Verstappen too, so I think that'd be a cool chat for sure. Max is a big football fan and he asked me how to invite him, Klopp, to a race. One of Max's best friends is Virgil van Dijk. Didn't know that. The Dutch defender for Liverpool FC in England. Holland's national team captain and for many years one of Jurgen Klopp's top performers during his time at Liverpool. That's the good thing about Red Bull, that our brand sports program at the highest level enables us to create synergies and bring the protagonists together. Meanwhile, Verstappen denied that because he is nearing the end of his full allocation of super license penalty points that he might race more cautiously in 2025. Didn't doubt that for a second. I won't change my driving style because of that, the Dutchman told Swiss newspaper Blick. I already know when I go too far. Like in Abu Dhabi when I attacked Oscar Piastri at the start, I had no problem apologising to him for that. And he did apologise, fair enough. But yeah, $1 billion. I mean, if anybody's wondering how that would work, that's more in terms of releasing him from his contract. So I don't know what Max Verstappen's salary is right now. It's a lot. I think he's probably on $50 million a year at Red Bull, roughly, something like that. So if you think about the finances of what that deal could be. So currently at the moment, depending on who you ask, but currently at the moment, officially, Max Verstappen is signed on at Red Bull until the end of the 2028 season. Now, Fernando Alonso has his contract until the end of 2026. So let's just say that Verstappen comes into Aston Martin in 2027 and there's no kind of early release break clauses. I mean, there might be. Apparently there aren't, but some people say there are. You don't know without looking at the thing. But let's just say there's not, just for simplicity's sake. So that's releasing effectively your driver 2 years early. So that's $100 million right there. The salary that Verstappen would be on at Aston Martin, I mean, honestly, 100 million maybe, 100 million a year, I could see it. You know, we're talking in a few years' time, Formula 1 continues to grow. He's going to have to go from the team that's, you know, he's been a part of for over 10 years at that point, over 10 years at this point, really, if you count his Toro Rosso days back in the day too. You know, so then you're talking, let's say, 4-year deal, 5-year deal. That's $500 million. The release thing in there too. That's another 100 million on top of that. So 600. You know, you can see how these figures can get to $1 billion. It's an eye-watering sum. Would they invest in that? I mean, it's not just Lawrence Stroll. He has the ultimate say. He's the head honcho, but there's other people there too, including Adrian Newey, in terms of the finances of the car brand for Aston Martin. So would they spend that much on him? I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a lot of money. That is a hell of a lot of money. It depends what options present themselves at that time. But hey, you know, if he wants to, I think to stick around in Formula One for a longer amount of time until his mid-30s, he'd probably want to move team, because he's spoken quite a bit as Verstappen about wanting a new challenge eventually, and he'll have done all he wants to do in Formula One and has achieved what he wants to have achieved. You know, by then he could be a 7-time world champion potentially. You don't know. Then he's on the same level as Hamilton and Michael Schumacher in that regard. So yeah, it's a ludicrous amount of money, but this is Formula One. Anything can happen, and it usually does. So I want to hear your thoughts though. Is this something that could happen? I've got my doubts, but I could definitely see him going to Aston Martin someday. Whether that figure is a bit hyperbolic is another matter, a bit exaggerated, that is another matter. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As always, guys, like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell as well. I'll see you very soon, guys. Have a good one.